Hello and welcome to lesson 1. In this step, we are going to lay the foundations for everything to come. Before we start modeling, however, in Blender, I want to show you how understanding the human form, even in its simplest shapes, can make a huge difference. So in my study just here, you can see how I began with nothing more than a few simple cubes, one for the head, one for the body, and one for the hips. And from there, I moved into rounded egg-like shapes for the chest or the rib cage, and gradually I connected these together into more complete forms. So at first, it's not about detail, it's about construction. Learning to see the body as a structure of blocks, cylinders, and curves gives us a roadmap for building characters in both 2D and, in our case, 3D. Now, if you'd like to study this art form further, I highly recommend the YouTube channel Modern Day James, particularly his series Deciphering Bridgman's Anatomy. It's a fantastic resource for breaking down complex anatomy into manageable shapes. Now, if drawing isn't your strength, don't worry. In this course, we'll also be gathering solid reference images online, which will guide us just as effectively. Professionals rely on references constantly. They are the backbone of good modeling practice. But for now, let's just start simple, start blocking out, and build a solid base. So the first thing we want to do is open the chosen browser. So I use Bing because I'm on Microsoft. You might want to use Google, DuckDuckGo, whichever it is. And you're going to want to go and find some images. So we're going to be building a mannequin to start with. So I'll just search for mannequin art reference, and here we go. And I'll go to images, and we've got lots to choose from just there. So I'm going to put that onto the right side of my screen, and I'm going to open up PureRef. Okay. So we covered what PureRef was in the fundamentals part of the course, but just a quick recap. This is an area where I can collect all of my different reference images in one place, and it's a infinite screen, so I can put as many of these as I want onto it. Obviously, the size of the file will get quite big if you went over the top, but we can collect images just by clicking on them in here. So let's go find one that I'd like to start with. There we go. And you can see now I can just start collecting images. Now you can see I didn't open that one. If I open it and then bring it in, you can see you just get a bit of a different resolution. So it's always worth giving the pictures an open. And what you guys are going to do now is I would like you to go and collect as many references as possible. So I'll get a few more. Let's just have a look at what's good for us. So you do want a couple of different orthographic views. You'd like a couple from the front, so that could be quite useful. Let's put that one up there. Just have a flick through, see what helps you out. That's a nice one. Okay, so there's lots of cubes, so we'll definitely have that one. And then I can scroll out, so you can move around this scene by either middle mouse wheel button holding just to move around, or you can zoom in and out. And you can see we can zoom right out, so you can see how much space we've got. It's just a case of taking some time. I'd say take about an hour to collect as many references as possible, okay? The more references you've got, the easier you will find it when it comes to modeling. Now, I'm just going to get these few here, but I have got, if I right click and open, I've already collected quite a few just here. Oh, I've done it again. So here you go. So you can see this is a little bit more tailored towards muscle groups. So it's a little bit further ahead than where we're going to be today. We are just going to be blocking out shapes. So I'm going to add to this, and you can see what I've done here is I've sectioned it off. So I've got head in one area, I've got the torso and sort of like the top of the shoulders in one area, I've got the arms in one area, I've got the legs in one area. And one thing you can do, let's just get a few more together. So I'd like to collect that one again. That was quite nice. Let's do a block out up here. So if I just open a few, and I'm just going to shove in quite a few that look quite good for me. And you can see the sort of style I'm going for. And you know what? I might even look for Bridgman art reference torso. Okay, Bridgman is a very good traditional art tutor who shows you how to break down the shapes. If I just get a few more from this chap, so you can see some people have been doing some nice referencing and sketches of their own. Always recommended to have a look at traditional arts because it does filter across to 3D. That's quite a nice one. for the legs, so we'll do that. And you can see I'm not being too ID just here at the minute. So before we tidy this up, I just want to show you the reference to the video on YouTube that I was talking about earlier on. So open up YouTube, and I'm going to go to modern day James, and I'll show you the page in a second. This is the one you look for. You want to look for this modern day James chap, okay? And he does a whole series. He's got loads of really good videos, but these are the ones you're looking for. Now, if you like drawing, even if you don't, I suggest you go and have a go at doing this because it will help you out to no end in 3D. If you've got a good understanding of 2D imagery, it translates so well into 3D. So, over the next hour, I'd like you to pause this video, collect as many references as possible, and because I'm releasing these videos on a weekly basis, you've got a few days before the next video comes out, and we're going to be blocking out in this video. But if you want to, don't worry about blocking out today. I would go and do 1, 2, and I think 3. There might be a fourth one. Yep, there's a fourth one as well for hands. Go and do these videos. Go and follow along with these videos and do a study, do some drawing, even if it just means copying what modern day James is doing himself. They are very, very good, and you'll see how much this translates into 3D once you practice them. You don't have to. I'm not affiliated with this chap at all. I just found these very useful myself, and it's all about passing on knowledge. So go give this guy a watch if you'd like to. Otherwise, just open up Google, open up Bing, whichever it is you like. Go and get some references. We are going to be building a mannequin. So you saw on the desk that I had earlier. There we go, one of these guys. This is what we're going to be creating. So let's bring him in as well. And then once you've got all your images nice and organized, you can highlight them all, right click, come down to save, come down to export, and select it as scene. Now I'm going to save mine just to the desktop for now, and you can choose your width and height if you'd like to. I'm just going to leave them as is and press export, and it will export the scene. And once that's done, you can see now on my desktop I now have this as a single PNG image, which is very useful. I also want this as a single image, so you can right click on this one again, go to save, go to export, and selected image. Okay, so you've only selected the one, and then go and save that into a desired location as well. So you should have this one, and then all of them together as 2 images. Let's give Blender an open. We'll just set up our hierarchy. So we're going to make another window, just here. So what we're going to do is have an image of lots of different pictures here by clicking this button at the top left, come into image editor, going and finding the image that you just created, and you can see now we can got all these images, we can just move around and have a look at them in Engine. Very useful. But this isn't very good for working in the 3D viewport. We want this image, which we went and saved separately, inside of our viewport so that we can work off of it. So I'm just going to make this a bit smaller. So I'm going to hide all my menus and my toolbars and my sidebars. Come to front view, and we're going to import an image to our 3D workspace. So you can either come up to add image, and we'll go for a reference, or you can press Shift and A and come down to image reference. Go and find that reference. So I've saved it just here, and bring it into your viewport. So I'm going to focus on it with numpad full stop. Now this is going to be the image that we're going to use to help block out the character. So what we really want here is we want I'm currently in front view by either pressing up here or pressing 1 on the numpad. In front view, we want the character to be at the world origin facing us. Okay, so I'm just going to move the image using G on the X and try and line this guy up in the middle. Now it can be quite difficult to see exactly where the center of this image is. So with most things in Blender, you've got some properties that you can adjust. Let's just make this a bit smaller for now. And I'll bring this out so you guys can see it. If you come down to the data, the image data properties with the picture selected, you've got some options here to do with this image. And we've got one down here called opacity. So you can click that and you can make it so you can see all the way through it, or you can turn up the opacity. So we'll turn it up to about there, and we'll just go and manually move this image now so it's roughly in the center. Now obviously this is a drawing and it's not symmetric, so you want to do the best you can. I find around the pelvis, around the groin area is usually quite good for centering up. Yep, you can see he's kind of looking over this way, but it's not a problem. It's just going to help us block out. And now we want to raise him up on the Z axis. So with the picture selected, I'm going to press G and then Z and then move that up. And we've got this nice line on the reference image to help us line his feet up. So we've done the front, so we're just going to move it back a little bit. Now we also want to have one from the side view. So if you press 3 on your numpad, we also want to be able to see the side view when we are in side view. So with this image selected, press Shift and D to duplicate it, right click to set it back in place, press R to rotate on the Z, and then just type in 90. Okay, so we just rotated it on the Z axis by 90 degrees. And now if we come to side view by pressing 3 on the numpad, we can now drag this picture to do the same thing with this side image. So we're going to place it roughly in the center of the world. Just line him up best we can so that he's central. And I've sort of lined up the front of the ankle to the dip in the spine to the back of the neck, and you can see it's just a little bit off there. So I think that's good there. His feet should be on the floor because we copied this image, and once again we're going to move it backwards along the X this time though. So we've got our references in place. Let's go and name them so we know what's what. So this is the front ref. I will make just a quick collection. Coming up to this little button on the top right and giving that a click, and we get another collection. And let's just name that block out. And this is where we're going to be placing all of our mesh. So I'm going to come to front view. And we've got our reference just here. We can even make this a bit smaller. So we've got lots of nice little references here. That one's quite good. So we're going to start using, in the mesh, these simple shapes just here to block out our character, okay? First thing we're going to start with, the torso. I'm just in wireframe, makes it a bit easier to maneuver around the workspace. And let's just move that roughly up to the center. And then come into edit mode, and with everything selected, just scale that in. And bring it in, up, sorry. And as we can see here, the top and about halfway down are about the same width, and then it gets narrower. So we'll go with that. So we'll use a loop cut by pressing Ctrl and R in the center. And we'll highlight in wireframe mode so I get the vertices at the back as well. We can just give this a bit of a scale. And don't worry, it's a little bit off. We can always bring these in if you want. And just make sure that it's roughly the right size. Then we'll come over to side view and we'll just finesse it again to make it all fit. And it's just very, very rough at the minute. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm going further than it looks like on the image. We'll bring that one up. And that looks good. I'll go back into solid shading mode. Now you can swap between solid shading and wireframe by pressing Shift and Z, okay? And that'll just go between the two different viewports. It's useful whilst you're doing this step. So I'd like these two just to be a bit closer, so I'm going to scale them on the X. Yep. So that's the torso. Let's move on to this abdomen area. So this is just going to be a simple sphere, and we're going to use a UV sphere. So let's just bring that in, bring it up, go into wireframe, just by Shift and Z, into edit mode, everything's selected using A if it's not already, and scale. Scale, 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 scale. Now I'm going to move this, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and just scale that in a little bit more. Do solid shading, you can shade smooth by right clicking shade smooth, and come over to side view, and we're just going to go into edit mode. I'm going to edit this a little bit, bring this face at the bottom just down a little bit, just so it does intersect. We'll add more shapes to it, like the ribcage shape, a bit later. So now we need to do the pelvis area. So we'll do that with another cube. This one's going to have a little bit of editing, quite a bit around the sides here for the hips. So what we're going to do before we alter this cube, go into edit mode, add a loop cut down the middle, go into wireframe mode, go into vertices select mode, select these vertices, hit X to delete the vertices, okay? We go into solid shading, you can now see it's half a cube. Come down to the little spanner to the modifiers tab, add a modifier, come to generate, and add a mirror modifier. Make sure clipping is ticked to make sure that they join together, because if it's not, and I select everything, you'll see that they're two separate bits of mesh. We don't want that. So clipping on, there we go. Let me just scale that down in object mode. That'll do. Let's apply the transform. You can either come up to Object, Apply, Scale, okay? Or you can do it with Control and A, Scale. And let's just get this roughly the right shape, shall we? So they're a bit low. Let's bring them up. So they're going to come up a little bit higher. The sides are going to come out a little bit further. And now we want to sort of create this indented part just here, okay? So let's add a loop cut just here. Go underneath, into face select. We can maybe come into solid shading. Select this bottom face and just bring that down. And let's go into side view. Oh, it's a bit wide. So into wireframe again by pressing Shift and Z. Let's select vertice select with 1. Select these rear faces and bring them in. Let's select this line around the middle. Bring it along the X. Let's add another loop cut just here. Go into wireframe mode. Into vertice select. Select these. Move them up on the Z. Maybe to about there. And select these bottom ones into side view. That's the front ones need to come forward, isn't it? You can see what I'm doing here. I'm just going around and just matching up as best I can with this simple geometry to the shape on the references. Let's do the legs. Now you can either use a cylinder or you can use a sphere. I'm going to use a sphere. I'm just going to duplicate that sphere just there, move it down, go into it. I'm going to rotate this one back 90 degrees so we've got the top and the bottom points. I'm going to go into wireframe mode. Now here we've got this edge going around the center. If we select that with Alt and left mouse button click, let's add a bevel to it, Control and B. And then before we set it, let's just one wheel with the mouse wheel so we get that edge in the center. And now if we select vertice select and select all of these in wireframe, so I've got the ones at the back, you can see we can make like a capsule. Okay. Capsules are very useful. And we'll use that for the top of the leg. So let's just scale that capsule down completely. So the bottom is going to want to be just behind the knee, and the top is going to want to be going into the side of the hip, leaving space for these joints for now. So into edit mode, let's do the lower half now. So I'm in solid shading. You can see just by selecting from my viewport wherever I'm looking, I don't select those back vertices. So I'll always flip into wireframe mode, box select all of them, and that way you know you've got all of them selected. Bring that one down. I might even give it a bit of a rotation. So if you can't remember, the quick keys are to rotate, G to grab, S to scale. Okay, there you go-tos. Let's get that roughly into the right spot. And select the top ones. Let's just give them a scale now. Let's rotate a little bit. And we're just going to go up to the top of just here where the groin matches. We're just going to go snug in there. And back into solid shading, just have a look. So let's go into side view with 3. Go into edit mode, select everything, just give that a bit of a rotate. So this back face just here, I'll show you. When you're drawing, this is normally drawn straight to start with when you're blocking out, as is this one. Okay, maybe back a little bit. So those two are the straight edges, and you want to kind of try and aim for that with your 3D mesh as well. So just delete them. So we can scale this up a little bit, I think. Move it on the Y. So this back edge is the flat one. Go into wireframe. Let's just adjust these. And they come forward a bit. You can just add a loop cut in here if you'd like to. Make sure you bring it to the center before you stretch it out. Make sure you're going back into side view so you know that it's all marrying up. So we need to just do a little bit more. Just to the Y, not so much on the X. Now we've done the leg on one half. Instead of having to do all that work again, we can just use a mirror modifier just to do it for us. So we're going to make sure we don't need clipping on, but we are going to have to mirror around an object because my origin is up here. This origin is in the center. Okay, so we can mirror on that. Can do is just apply transforms by Control and A. All transforms, that'll move the origin to the world center, and then you'll be able to mirror around yourself. If I just click that, you'll see it's now mirrored. So now we need to do the lower parts of the leg, so we'll do that with another sphere. Yeah, we'll use another sphere. So I'm going to duplicate this one down to the center, and then go into edit mode. Let's rotate that back to 90. We might not even have to do those edge loops in the center. Let's just grab everything, scale it down so it's roughly the right width. We could maybe even bring it up to about, that looks good. Let's go right in, select these top vertices. Now I am in wireframe, remember. Bring these up. So these can go around. Just touching that upper one, and then bring this one down to the ankle. Scale that down because it does get a bit narrower. Into side view. You can see we're right off, so I'm going to select everything with A. Bring it back. Let's get that ankle roughly in the right place. Select these top ones. Might even need a rotate. So there's little small adjustments. Looks good. And then we can maybe add a loop cut in just here with Control and R. I'm going to scale that loop on the Z by 0 just to flatten it out. I'm going to bring it over, rotate it a little bit, and then scale again. Go to the front view. Now it's massive, too big on the X, so we'll just bring that one in. Let's mirror this by setting its transform to the world origin. Okay, remember you can do that up here in Object, Apply, All Transforms. So now let's do the upper arm and the lower arm. You could duplicate these if you want and then just move the geometry around. I'm just going to keep using the center sphere just to help me out. So duplicate, into edit mode, scale it down. Let's put it down here. Zoom in by pressing full stop on the numpad. Now I'm actually going to rotate this just so it's flush up and down. Select in wireframe these vertices, scale it up, and now if I place it in the right location, that'll just make it easier to manipulate in a bit. So scale these down. So about there. Now I actually don't think I want the top to be a sphere or half of a sphere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect this lower edge loop, make sure I'm in edge select mode. Okay, so I just clicked on that edge and it's just deselected all of those edges going around with Shift and Alt and left mouse button click. I'm now going to come into front view and I'm going to hit X and faces. And now that's just deleted all those unwanted faces. I'm going to solid shading mode just so we can see what's happened. Okay, it's just cut the top off. Now I want to fill this. You can press F to fill, but you can see that's a massive end gone. It's not too bad of a problem at the moment because we're going to be remeshing and all sorts later. But what we can do is we can come up to face and go to grid fill, and it'll just add in some geometry there that's actually all of this is quads. So it's the best practice. It does add lots of faces though, so you might want to come down and just play with the different amounts, different offsets to see what works for you. So that's going to be good for my arm because we're going to have a shoulder up here, and the shoulder, majority of the muscle actually will be sculpted from the torso, and then the arms will be separate. So we'll leave that as is. Let's do the lower arm. We'll use another UV sphere. I'll just bring another one in for now. Let's scale that down. Go into edit mode, go into wireframe mode, go into vertices select mode, select all these top ones, leaving that center line. Actually, we'll take the center line with us for the top because it's a bit wider. Bring it up, rotate it into place, and we can scale that. So I'm going to come into side view, but I can't see the arm. So if I press Control and 3, I'll go into side view, but I'm in the negative now. So I'm looking down the positive of the X. We're going to move these arm pieces along the Y-axis just to line up here. Just that's what this arm's for. And you can see this, the drawer, the artist that did this, has done it perfectly level. So it's a lot easier for us to model the arm to the right dimensions, the right shapes, away from our character. And that'll become obvious why it's so helpful later. Okay, so I'm just scaling, grabbing, adding loop cuts. I think we need to adjust this top one. So I'm going to go into wireframe, grab all of those vertices, and I'm going to bring that down to be the elbow. And rotate. I'm going to add a loop cut in here. I'm going to move it to the center. That looks good, and scale that up on the Y. Go into front view. Now we've gone off a little bit, so let's just select all of these vertices, bring that back. There we go. Let's have a look what that looks like. Okay, we're not going to worry too much about this bicep issue right now. So we need to mirror these two arms. Just going to use the torso. So before we do the neck and the head, let's add in all the little joints, and then we'll do the hands and the feet in a bit as well. So we're just going to add in a simple UV sphere again. Let's rotate it 90 degrees and scale it down. So this is just going to be a simple joint like you see on this mannequin character, where we've got all of the little spheres. So let's just put them in place. Make sure you go in between side and front view. And before we move on, let's make a mirror. Let's shade smooth. And let's put these into the correct places. I am in object mode. We can always apply transforms at the end for everything. It's not a problem. You can see why we cut the top of the arms off. So if you look up here, the arm finishes below the shoulder of a block out, and the shoulder is just a simple sphere. You can use different shapes if you want to, and this is just what I find easiest. Okay. So we're not going to do detailed hands and detailed feet with lots of toes for the block out. Okay, we're going to follow, was there a simple one? Just this mannequin here. If you look at the mannequin hands on these wooden ones, they're just like a UV sphere cut in half and squished a little bit. Detailed hand, we'll get into that later on. We're just going for a simple block out. There you go, you can see what I mean there. So we're going to go for something a little bit like this, and I find the easiest way to do that is add in a sphere, go into front view, go into wireframe, go into vertices select, select the bottom half below the line, delete everything. I'm just going to focus on just this sphere for now by pressing forward slash, and it'll just go into focus mode on just this. Everything's gone, as you can see. We're going to select everything, scale it on the Y, just roughly a foot shape. So we've scaled that along the Y, and I want to select this bottom edge loop, like so. So Alt and left mouse button click. You can do it in vertice or edge select. I then want to make sure this 3D cursor is at the center of this line. So let's do that now. By pressing Shift and S and then cursor to selected. It probably doesn't look like it's moved, but we now know that that is level plane with this edge. We want to select everything by pressing A and then coming up here and make sure that we are selecting the transform pivot point to be the 3D cursor. And that means that wherever we scale from, it'll be from the cursor, as you can see. We scale that on the Z now, and then come up to the top, select this vertice, and move that along the Y with proportional editing on. Like so. Remember, you can just move the middle mouse wheel to just adjust the influence from this vertice, and that should be fine. That's roughly what we're going for. Let's have another look up here. Can't really see his hands there. Bit blurry, but yeah, it's roughly what we're going for. And then we'll come underneath, select all of these edges around the bottom, come up to face, and grid fill. If we push forward slash again, we'll go back into our regular 3D viewport. And we can now go into edit mode, select everything we've just done, scale it right down. going to turn proportional editing off, so you don't need it right now. Scale it down. Let's move it over, and we're going to use these for the feet and the hands. Just going to move that along. I'm just going to select that top vertice inside view. So instead of grabbing it and trying to stop the other vertices just down here at the bottom being affected, what we can do with proportional editing on, and with the 3D cursor selected as our transport pivot point and the 3D cursor being on that level plane at the bottom, we can scale up. So scale on a Z, like so, and we can use our middle mouse wheel just to affect the foot. And then we can just move it back, and we just want a very rudimentary foot. If I go into solid shading, that will do. Okay, it's got a bottom, it's got a top, it's a right-ish shape. Let's mirror that. Job's a good one. We can use the same mesh for the hands, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to Shift and D to duplicate. So bring it up here. I'm going to make the torso the center, just that way it does, whenever I move it, you can see it moves perfectly mirrored. Let's bring these back. They look like they could be a bit big. I'm now going to move it back to individual origins, so the transform pivot point, and that means that we can now rotate around here. And I'm just going to focus on these hands, go into edit mode, select this top vertex. Okay, let's have a look. Press Shift and S, press 2, that brings the cursor here. Go into object mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. That's going to put the origin at the top of the hand. Why do we do that? If I come into side view, rotate, you see the hand's a little bit easier to rotate now. So the hand is facing upwards and the palm is facing down. So let's do that. Now, I haven't set the transforms of this mesh. Okay, you can see the rotation is all off, the location's off because it's up here, and the origin is not at the world center. That's quite useful. So I now want to rotate this hand and spin it in place, and that just means I'm rotating on its local Y. And I just want to place these roughly where they belong. Come into side view. Now, I think they're a bit big, so let's just bring them down. Now with the hands, there's a bit of a dip from the wrist. So the wrist drops down. If you look at your hand, the wrist is higher when you're relaxed than the hand. So we want to try and just mimic that a little bit. Let's move it on its local again. On its actual, on the world X. You can see I'm just going around, rotating, and getting the shapes into place. There we go. That'll do. Let's move the cursor back to the world origin by pressing Shift and S and cursor to world origin. There we go. We're nearly there. So we've done the arms and the hands. We can now put them onto our torso if we want to by selecting every piece. Go in side view and just bring it along. We might move it back later on when we start the sculpting part. Now I'm going to go into wireframe mode quick and just line up the shoulder in the center of this circle so it's in the right place. Like so. Cool. Let's do the neck. We'll use this center sphere. We'll just duplicate it on the Z, bring it up, go into side view, and the origin's off a little bit, so I'm just going to right click and set it to center of mass. There we go, and now I can scale it properly. Just bring this into the center. Now this is going to be at the bottom of the neck. So what we'll do with the head is we'll get the head shape looking right, and then we'll pull out, extrude out a neck to connect to the top of this sphere, this joint. Will do. And now it's time to do the head. I'm going to set that to you as a challenge. So see if you can put into practice everything that we've just learned together, and see if you can go away on your own and create the head for this block out. Okay, remember, we're not going into too much detail, so don't worry about doing the eyebrows, the nose, or the mouth, nothing like that, just the shape of the head. And for now, don't worry about doing the neck either. We'll figure that out when we start sculpting in a bit. So see if you can go and do that now. That's it for this lesson. We've gone from gathering and organizing our references in PureRef to jumping into Blender and blocking out the basic shape of our character. This stage is all about building strong foundations, and getting this step right will make the rest of the process so much easier, whether you're aiming for a stylized or a realistic look. Take the time to refine your block out until you're happy with the proportions and the silhouette, and in the next lesson we'll start shaping these forms into something that feels a little more human, bringing in the first hints of anatomy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.